Welcome to day one of the Squiggly Career Skill Sprint. And in this episode, we are going to be talking about the skill of time management.
And we all spend a lot of time at work, so it's relatively obvious why this one feels important. But I also feel like it's one of those areas where maybe there's a bit of pressure to always get better at it. You know, when you read those profiles of people of how they spend their time, and they always seem to be up at like 4:35 a.m. Then they've run 10K, and then they've read a book all before breakfast, and then they eat like a really healthy breakfast. And I'm just sort of like clambering out of bed, just going like, oh, I can't even think straight.
Yeah.
So I think everyone sort of does this in their own way, but also I think we sort of give ourselves a hard time that we're not spending our time well. We need to optimize more. So I do think you have to find an approach to time management that works for you. And I think it's fair to say that Helen and I's approach to time management is relatively different. So hopefully there'll be something for everyone in today's episode. So Helen, what's your idea for action?
The way that I find most effective for me to manage my time is to think about like the highest return on my time. So what I recognize is that I can't create more time. You know, that whole, you can't get more hours in a day, you can't get more kind of days in the week. So you're working with a finite amount of time. But I think the variable is that there are some hours in your day that have a higher return because you probably have more energy, you're more effective in those moments. So if I think for me, the highest return for me on my time, when I get the most out of an hour spent on something, is in the morning, because I'm more mentally present in the morning, I think, before the day distracts me a little bit. And also earlier in the week, I feel like distractions accumulate in my brain.
Yeah.
So by like Friday morning, I'm a bit of a like, oh, this and this, I've got too much to do. On a Monday or a Tuesday morning, I've got that like clarity. And so if I spend an hour or two working on something important on a Monday or Tuesday morning, I get way more out of that hour than I would if I spent an hour on that piece of work on a Friday afternoon, for example. So it's really about understanding which hours in your working week do you get the highest return on that time? And then that's the skill, I think, is matching the work to that window. And that's where you'll have a sort of bigger impact, get a better output from the time. So that's what I do. It's quite analytical, really, in terms of thinking about your time. Would you be a Monday morning, Sarah, Tuesday morning? Is that your optimum hour?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm definitely, like a slow starter.
Yeah.
Like slow to start the week. I don't like starting early in the day. And I definitely warm up. End of day, early evening is always a good time for me. And I think I gain energy as the week goes on. So that's always interesting because I feel like you and I are very good at different moments. So maybe we're a good team, or perhaps we clash, depending on how you want to think about it. So my idea for action is to close your open loops. So this is an idea that was introduced to me by David Allen, who wrote Getting Things Done. And he says that our brains are for having ideas, not for holding them. And I really recognize that challenge of if you are holding lots of actions or kind of unresolved or unfinished things kind of in your head, you often spend your time worrying about those, like where are they, have I made progress on them, and almost you're splitting your time and your attention in too many different directions, and also not giving your brain the opportunity to do its best work. So closing those open loops looks like kind of putting those unfinished things all in the same place. What's appealing is you don't actually have to finish the things. What's important really is just making sure that they are captured, so that then you've got them in one place, and then you can think, what do I need to do in what order, or what does it look like to make progress? But you're just giving yourself the chance to spend your time in the best way. And that has actually, I've been doing that probably for about 6 weeks now. So it's quite a new thing for me. And it has made a really big difference to how I feel in a day about the time that I've got, and to whether I feel like I'm spending my time well. I think I feel more confident I'm spending my time on the right things in the right order. And I feel less worried generally about kind of time management, because I feel like I've sort of got a better process. And I'm not a super processy person. So closing those open loops has really worked for me.
It makes me think about like effective time management is both you kind of need a process, but it's also the emotions that you attach to it. I sometimes feel like when we get stressed or we're holding too much in our head, you end up sort of telling yourself a story about, I'm not working well with my time. But actually having the clarity, like for you, kind of closing the open loops, and for me, just matching it, you suddenly feel a bit more in control, and that kind of emotional stuff kind of goes away a little bit.
So our expert insights here are two quite different people. So do you want to talk about Laura first?
Yes. So sticking with the theme of like efficiency and clarity and all that kind of stuff, a really good book that I would recommend is by somebody called Laura Vanderkam. It's 168 Hours is the book, and it's where she goes a bit more sort of in depth in this idea of kind of time, almost like a currency, and how you spend it and how you invest it and where you get the best return. So I'd highly recommend that. I read it a while ago and found it really useful.
And my expert is Oliver Burkeman. So he wrote 4,000 Weeks, Time and How to Spend It. And it is a much more zoomed out approach to time and time management. So I think if you are more in the space of thinking, I want to reevaluate, I want to redefine what time and how I spend my time, like what does that look like for me? I think it is a brilliant place to start. I think he will challenge you. He will make you really consider like what matters to you in terms of how you spend your time. And there is a great quote from him that I wanted to read out, where he says, the real measure of any time management technique is whether it helps you neglect the right things. What you say no to and what you don't do is probably more important than what you say yes to.
I like it.
I do.
I like it.
It really,
it's a good quote. It's a good quote.
And Oliver's writing generally on time and productivity is always really useful, because also I think he approaches it with he's naturally quite attracted to productivity techniques, but he's also quite philosophical. So I think he almost has a tension that he's trying to resolve through trying these things out.
It's so you. It's so you, this mixture of like psychology and then practical. So that is the end of the first day of the Squiggly Career Skills Sprint. We'll be back with you tomorrow for day number 2.